Hi, I'm Charlie Neumann, and this is Wednesday with the Saints. The following is a short video on William Temple, Archbishop of Canterbury, who is commemorated in the Episcopal calendar on November 6th. William Temple played an outstanding role in both the civil and ecclesiastical life of England during the first half of the 20th century. He was appointed Bishop of Manchester in his late 30s. He went on to become Archbishop of York and Archbishop of Canterbury from 1942 until his death in 1944. He was admired and respected for his scholarly writing, his inspirational teaching and preaching, for his constant concern for those in need or under persecution, and for his willingness to stand up on their behalf to governments at home and abroad. During his lifetime, he became a household name. They called him the People's Archbishop. He was born in a bishop's palace in 1881. His father was Bishop of Exeter and became Archbishop of Canterbury himself when William was 14. William's life was spent in episcopal palaces, yet it is clear that his privileged start did not spoil him, for there was no trace of snobbery or class consciousness in his later years. Rather, there came to be an increasing concern for all who had not shared in his circumstances. The time of William's life was a time of great change in the English nation, church, and culture. Temple came to maturity in the Gilded Age, where the gap between rich and poor was dramatic. This was followed by the slaughter and carnage of the Great War. Then came the Depression and the rise of fascism in Europe. The church of that time was inwardly focused. As Hitler came to power, its position was a detached pacifism. Temple wrote in opposition. He said that he was not only non-pacifist, but anti-pacifist. He did not deny pacifists' right to refuse to fight, but maintained that they must take responsibility for their renunciation of the use of force. He said that people are responsible not only for what they intend, but for the foreseen results of their activity. If Hitler remained unopposed and conquered Europe, pacifists had to be willing to accept responsibility for their inaction. This argument resonates to this day. Temple's time was also a time of transition in the relationship between the church and government. The Church of England had been under the control of Parliament for its laws and rules. Temple was a leader in the fight to establish the independence of the church. In England and globally, he also became a recognized leader of the international ecumenical movement, bringing together Christians of all denominations. His work was seminal to the creation of the World Council of Churches. He had exceptional perceptiveness and empathy with regard to the views of others. He once wrote that he always began an inquiry by assuming every conviction strongly held is at least partly true, and that, as a rule, our wisdom is to find out, if we can, where this partial truth fits into the whole fabric. He authored several books. His most noted is Christianity and Social Order. In the book, Temple outlines the contours of the welfare state, with its call for the provision of universal access to health care, education, decent housing, proper working conditions, and democratic representation. He argues for a proper balance between the profit motive and service to the community, the relationship between the power of the state and the freedom of the individual, the importance of finding the right relationship between people and the earth they inhabit. William Temple's vision was a post-war society that reflected the innate dignity of each person created in the image of God. He once wrote, "Our present social system constitutes a standing insult to the personality of the poor man. He is dependent upon the goodwill of others. To give or to receive charity is excellent when equality is first assured. But to be dependent upon anything in the nature of charity for the reasonable necessities of civilized life is an outrage." After his death, President Roosevelt praised him, saying, "As an ardent advocate of international cooperation based on Christian principles, he exerted a profound influence throughout the world."